Let me welcome everyone to Career Pathways. Thank you for watching this new video we're doing on Kali Linux version 2.0 installation and configuration. And in this video, we're actually going to go ahead and we're going to configure Kali Linux in a VMware environment. I'm running VMware version 12, Workstation Pro, and I'm running this on a Windows 10 machine. So everything is kind of new and pristine, and as is this version of Kali Linux. So we're going to install Kali. Of course, we're going to install the VMware tools. We're going to check our network interfaces, and if those are up and running and I have both wired and wireless, then we're going to go ahead and install a brand new program that I just got a hold of late last night called Gwake. Gwake is basically a terminal program that we can use with the GNOME interface, and basically allows us to put the terminal on a hotkey, and we can either go full screen or partial screen. I like full screen. We can make a bunch of adjustments to interface, and I absolutely love it. And a couple of my students brought this one to my attention and said, hey, you've got to go try this cool program. I went and looked at it, liked it, and I'm going to go ahead and integrate it into this video. And I want to thank those students who always are bringing new stuff to my attention, because one guy just can't know everything. And again, I'm pretty new to Linux, and I'm pretty new to Kali. I've been doing this for a little while, but there's still so much to learn. This new version of Kali means I'm probably going to have to redo all my videos because I already know a lot of the commands are different and a lot of the requirements are different. So once we go ahead and do an upgrade and an update, then we're going to go ahead and install SSH and certificates. So if we were to ever want to terminal into this program, we can use a program like Putty to do that, and I'll demonstrate how that works. Then we're going to just take some other considerations. There's some, I want to do things like turn the screen lock off, because it's like set to, I don't know, 4 minutes. So if you don't touch the screen for 4 minutes, your screen locks. Well, you know what? This is a penetration testing tool. I don't want to lock the screen, so I'm actually going to turn a couple of features off and do a couple of interface modifications. So with that said, let's go ahead and get started configuring and installing Kali Linux version 2. So I went ahead and opened up my copy of VMware, and I'm simply going to go up to the very top, and I'm going to go to File and New Virtual Machine. And I'm going to go ahead and click Next. And this is going to be a brand new machine. I want to make sure that I install the operating system later. I like to configure my machine before I tell it what I want to configure as far as the ISO image. This is going to be a copy of Linux, and I'm going to use Debian version 8 64-bit. I am using the 64-bit version of Kali, and I want to use the latest Debian interface with VMware. So that's set to go. I'm going to click Next, and I'm going to call this Kali Linux version 2 to a small v 2.0, and I'm going to go ahead and go Next. Click on that button, and I typically do not split my hard drive. I realize that we can put this stuff on a CD or DVD if we do this. I've got a 250 gigabyte thumb drive, so I have no need to do that, and this will make the thing run faster. And it should be noted for those of you that are tuning in for the first time, I'm running my virtuals on a SD drive, so things will happen pretty quickly as opposed to not, right? And I want to also change this drive to a 40 gig just because I know that I'll be using this particular version of Kali for doing other videos. So I want to make sure I've got plenty of hard drive space. And I'm going to go ahead and click Next. And then I want to tweak some of the interface features here. So I'm going to go ahead and open this up. And for example, I want to go ahead and have 4 gigabytes of memory. My machine has 32 gig. If your machine does not have that much, this can get by really on 1 gig or 2 gig. But I like to have a little bit of extra. My processors, I'm going to go ahead and put to 1 processor but 2 cores. My interface here, I want bridged. And that's pretty much it. So I'm going to go ahead and tell it to, now that I've done all this, to go ahead and close this. And I'll finish. Now, I want to go ahead and insert a CD, and I've not, if you were to tell the VMware that you wanted to insert the CD in the last step, every time VMware comes up, that CD for the VMware tools is going to be like in your face. So I always wait till now, and I'll go back in and I'll tell it that I don't always want this, but sometimes I do. So for the initial startup, I'm going to want to go ahead and put in here the Kali Linux version 2 AMD 64 ISO. It is right there, so I'll go ahead and tell that OK. So now I've got the ISO. I'm going to go ahead and do the installation. So I'll start this up. Now, this is going to take some time, and so I will be pausing the video at certain points because I don't want to make a 45-minute video when I could put the pause button on. So I'm going to just make sure that my mouse is in the window here, and then I'm going to go ahead and press down to get to the graphic install, and I will let this install. And we'll go through this. There's really only a couple of responses that actually need any kind of feedback at all, which is kind of good. And so we'll get this thing going here. So Kali Linux is now booting for the first time, and it's going to boot me into the graphic interface. And this is going to be an English version, so I'm not even going to need to click on it. It's that by default. I know if I just press enter, it's going to choose whatever the default is. I'm also going to go ahead and tell it is United States because we are, and I'm going to go ahead and tell that it's American English because I am. Then it's going to come up and do a few more configuration things. And again, I will be pausing the video from time to time to make sure we don't waste a lot of your time in waiting for this crazy thing to install. This is about a 20-minute install when it's all said and done. Now, once the installation process happens, things will move along pretty quickly as far as configuring all the rest of the very cool stuff that we're going to do. And so this should come back up now with a question here pretty quickly. Now it's going to, of course, detect network hardware. And it's going to attempt a network auto configuration, which it should be able to do just fine. I find this environment runs really well. I'm going to call this Kali, and I've got to make sure that my numlock is on V2 because I might have other Kali systems on my network. So I want to make sure that my name is distinctive. I'll press enter. This is going to ask me for my domain name. There isn't one, so I'll press enter to bypass that. And now it's going to ask me for my password. Now, the default password for Linux, when you're looking at these penetration testing environments and stuff, is root spelled backwards, which is Tor. And if I really wanted high security, I might put a different one. But since this is for demo purposes, I'm going to go ahead and just go with the standard of Tor. And I'm going to type it again, T-O-O-R. Again, that's root spelled backwards. Press enter. Now it wants to know what time zone I'm in, and I happen to be in the mountain time zone, so I'm going to move down to mountain and press enter. And now you can see it's actually going to copy some bunch of stuff over. Now it wants to know about the partitions. I'm going to leave everything at default. I want to use the entire partition, so I'll press enter through that, and enter once again, and enter once again. And I'm going to go ahead and tell this, yes, go ahead and commit the changes. So it's now going to go ahead and partition my hard drive. And what you're going to find is hopefully this will start copying files. So here's where I want to kind of pause the video because it takes, 10 minutes or so to copy this stuff over. So I'm going to bring the video back when I have some more input I need to do. But for right now, we're going to go ahead and hit the pause button. And I'll be back in just a few moments. You can see now that the installation process is almost complete as far as copying the files goes. And this should come back and ask me a couple more questions which we'll need to answer. Now this is kind of an important question, and in some of my other videos I actually put no on this and went ahead and put a repository in manually. And I'm going to be honest, I didn't fully understand what this does. What this does is if you go ahead and choose yes, this will put all of the newest repositories into your copy of Kali that you need to make this successful. So if you watch one of my earlier videos on the other earlier versions of Kali, when I click no here, the answer really is yes. And again, guys, I don't know everything about Linux. I feel like I'm still kind of new at this. So I'm going to go ahead and leave that default because that is what I want. So I'll press enter, and now this wants to know if I have any proxies, and I don't, so I'll press enter once again. And this is going to go ahead and do some more configuration now for me. It's going to apply. And you can see it's applying of files or accessing the files archive. So it's bringing in those, it's going to bring in those repositories that I need. Then when I go and do an upgrade and update, it will give me everything I need to complete some of the more advanced tasks like installing Veil and Easy Creds and Rubber Duck, and we'll have videos on those very shortly. So we'll go ahead and let this continue. And this is going to retrieve some files for me. Now it's going to go ahead and configure a packages manager. It's very tempting to think your machine is hung up right now. It's not. We just need to be patient and let it go ahead and configure the packages it needs to configure. So it's doing a lot of stuff in the background that I don't need to worry about, and you don't either, but don't freak out if your installation looks like it has stalled. It has not stalled, in fact. It's doing some things in the background. So I'm going to go ahead and wait for this. It shouldn't take too long. So I'm probably not going to go ahead and pause the video, but if you want to pause the video and you're following along with me, that's fine. But we'll go ahead and let this complete. And it's going to ask me a couple other questions, and then it's probably going to go ahead and reboot, and we're going to be good to go. So let's go ahead and let this package manager finish installing. And you'll actually find that this package manager is very handy, as we will see. I really like what I'm seeing out of this version of Kali. I'm pretty impressed with some stuff they've done. And I like the GNOME interface a lot better than I do KDE. I really didn't think I would say that, but I certainly can see why they went to it. Okay, so now this is asking if we want to actually use the Grub Loader, and we do. So I'm just going to press Enter again. Now, this one you want to be careful on. I'm going to go ahead and tell this that I want to move this down to this option here. This will allow you to boot to multiple partitions and that kind of thing. So if you already have a boot partition and you leave that option here, it'll go ahead and install that wherever you want it to install it. I want to make this my only operating system. So make sure you check the second option, and I'll press Enter, and then we'll continue on. So it says it's now finished with the installation, and it's going to go ahead and clean up some things. It's running some updates. It's not the big update that we'll be doing, but it's doing some other things that it needs to do to simply finish the installation. And again, this won't take very long either. And there you have it. So I'm going to go ahead and press continue down here. And now this is going to remove some stuff it needed to put in there for the installation process. It's going to kind of clean up after itself a little bit, which I find is a good thing. So we'll let it do a little bit of cleanup, and then we should be booting right into our fresh new copy of Kali Linux version 2. And again, you may think the machine is locked up, but it's not. Just have faith in what we're doing. As I always tell my class, please trust the process. And processes will change, but trust the process. This is still doing some things in the background. I wish there were a better indicator, but there's just not. So again, the machine hasn't froze. It's still doing a lot of stuff. So we'll let it go ahead and finish this installation. And we will, of course, reboot this virtual when it's time to do that. Now I can see VMware is rebooting. And the copy of Kali is now going to come up. And of course, we're not going to get full screen mode yet because we have not installed the VMware tools. So we're going to go ahead and we will do that next. But And there's a copy of Kali. We'll go ahead and log in with the password of root, or the username of root, the password of Tor, and lo and behold, here's our copy of Kali Linux version 2 freshly installed. There we have it. Now this is a really cool program. I love what they're doing, but right now I've got a pretty small screen and I really want to use a lot of the features. So the next thing we're going to do is we're actually going to install VMware tools. Okay, so in order to install VMware tools, I'm simply going to go to the top of my screen where I have my VMware. I'm going to click on VM and I'm going to go ahead and tell it to install VMware tools. And what this is going to do is it's going to mount the CD. I'm going to tell it, okay, I really don't want to see this again because I realize what's going on here. So I'm going to tell it to click install, and this should bring the CD up on my screen here shortly. You see it does, and you'll see something new with Kali. You see at the bottom of the screen it says VMware Tools. I can either open the files or eject. Well, of course I'm going to open the files. So if I click on Open Files, here they are. Now there's a couple ways I can do this, to be honest with you. I can double click on this tar and I can actually get into the tar and uncompress it right here. But I still kind of like doing things old school and from command lines, so you can learn how to do this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on this. I'm going to right click. I'm going to tell it to copy to. And this is a little bit different in this version of Kali because what it's going to do is give me a chance to actually put where to go to. I want to go ahead and put this right in the home directory, and I'm going to tell it to select that, and then it's going to actually do the function. So as I move this away, and I can even eject the DVD, so I'm right clicking on the CD and DVD and saying eject. If I now go into terminal mode, which is right here, I can see that I'm in the home folder. I'll type in ls and you'll see that I have that VMware tools tar file right here. You can see it's right over here. So now we're going to untar this. So I'm going to type in tar, and I'm going to do the parameter of xzvf. And then once you put the correct parameters in, if you just press the type in a capital VM and press the tab key, it will finish that command for you. And that's really a cool thing about Linux. I know Microsoft's also adopted this particular paradigm as well, but this is actually pretty intelligent. So if you're trying to get one of these big long Linux names, if you just get the first part of the name, and remember, Linux is case sensitive, so I type in the capital VM, and since that's the only thing in my current folder that has a capital VM, I press the tab key and it gets that whole name in there for me. So I'm going to go ahead and press enter, and you'll see that it's going to extract this pretty quickly. And there you have it. So now as I go ahead and type in clear, just clear my screen, and I do another ls, you can see I now have a folder called VMware Tools Distrib. And I'm going to go ahead and change that folder. So I'll type in cd space, and this time I'll type in a lowercase VM, and I'll press the tab key, and you'll see that it auto completes that. The cool thing about this is the tab key is really sensitive to what you're doing. It's smart. So if you're trying to do a function that it's going to get confused, it's just not going to do it. So I like using the tab key in Linux. So I'm going to go ahead and do an ls again, and you'll see now in green I have a VMware install, and it's a PL state. It's a PL script, and that is the one I want. So I'm going to go ahead and type in period / This is going to initiate my bash shell, and it's going to remember Linux does not know about, does not put this in my search directory. So in order to execute this, I have to tell exactly where it's at. So I'm telling it basically it's in the root of where I'm currently at. Okay, and I'm just going to type in VM, and I'm going to press tab, and you'll see it went ahead and completed that. Now it doesn't know which of these I want. It might think I want the one that's up here, and that's why it didn't complete and put the PL in. I'm just going to put the PL in myself, and I'm going to go ahead and press enter. Now when I do that, this is going to ask a lot of questions, and I'm going to tell you that this is a little bit different than previous versions. All I need to do is press enter, and it will do everything automatically. So I'm just going to go down and just keep pressing enter because I really do want everything set at the default levels. I'm really not even going to talk about these because there's really no need to do that. I'm just going to keep pressing enter. I don't think there's anything here that I want to make not standard. And in previous versions of this, there were actually a couple things you needed to do, but in this one I find there's really not. So I'm just going to press enter through it. And this gives me several options, of course. I'm going to go ahead and restart. I could log out of the session. I'm just going to go ahead and restart the machine because that's just what I'm used to doing. So I'm going to go ahead and type in reboot. I can restart this copy of Linux in a variety of ways, but reboot works for me. We'll go ahead and reboot in and we will see the effects of installing the VMware tool program. So let's go ahead and get that up and running. We'll see our copy of Kali is now coming up. But the cool thing about this is when we get this up and running again, we're going to get a full screen picture of Kali, not just a little square in the middle of the screen. And we're going to go ahead and log in with the root username and Tor for the password. And now you can see as VMware kind of takes over, the screen should go full screen here pretty shortly. And there you can see now we have a full version of Kali Linux, and I absolutely love it. I like what they're doing. So we'll go ahead and install another program before we do the updates here in just a moment. So I will be right back. One of the cool things about being an educator is I get input from a lot of different sources, and in fact one of those great sources of input is in fact my students, because quite frankly I've got a couple kids in my class that really know Linux very well, and I'm going to depend on their expertise sometimes in order to find new and cool stuff. Well, this is one of those new and cool things. This is a little program called Quake. And what Quake does is it takes the drop-down interface that's in a lot of the games like Quake. That's kind of where they got the name. Instead of Quake, it's Quake. But it's going to give you a really advanced, nice terminal window. And I like it so much because I can actually make the fonts bigger, which you guys know for me is kind of a big deal. I get some of this stuff on a small laptop that goes full screen and I can't see any of it. Well, with Quake, I can actually modify the size of the text, uh, and it's just very cool. Now, I can also do that if I go in and type in some fairly advanced commands under terminal, but I've never found that it worked very well. It always either messes up the colors or does something weird, right? Well, Quake just works out of the box. I can program it to a hotkey, and I just can't wait to bring it to you. So let's go ahead and go into a terminal window right here. And before we look at anything, I need to make sure my interfaces are correct for my output. So I'm going to go ahead and type in IFCONFIG, and you can see that I do have an interface. It is tied to 10.1.0.136, and I think I also have a wireless interface up and running, so I'm going to do an IW config just to make sure things are actually working. And it looks like my wireless is not there yet. I'll get that installed here shortly, but I really don't need it for this. I want to make sure that I can, however, get out to the internet, and I can. So we won't worry about the wireless yet. I just need to tell VMware about it, and I haven't done that yet. So my network interface is good to go. I'm going to go ahead and type in apt tick g et space install space GUAKE for Quake, and let's see if it will actually do that. And there it goes, it's installing. And it's got to install a couple other things, and we'll make sure these things get updated as well. Am I sure I want to go ahead and install this? Yes, I do. Just like I said, I can't wait to show this to you because it's very cool. And this installation won't take very long. One of the cool things I like about Linux is you can actually go in and get the latest and greatest just from the command line, and that's really different. You just have to kind of know where to get the stuff. And I don't even know where this came from. I just know that I type that command and it comes up and is ready to rock and roll. So it's actually there. So I'm going to go ahead and do a make sure that I'm in the terminal window, and I'm going to close it. And now I simply need to go find Gwake. And one of the cool things about this is right down here, there's two new options. One is called Tweak. We're going to play with that a little bit later in configuring Gwake. But the other one is this little guy right here. Says Show Applications. And what's cool about this is I can actually search for applications. I absolutely love this. So I'm going to type in GUA, and there it is. Right there automatically is. Here's the Gwake terminal, and here's the Gwake preferences. And we'll actually use both of these, but to get this started, I'm going to open up the terminal, and there it is. And you can see at the very top of my screen, as it's bringing up Gwake for the first time, hopefully it's going to come up. And since this is the first time it's run, it does take a second to come up. And there it is, hopefully. Now to get this to work, what I have to first do is actually press the F12 key because it's a toggle. And there's Gwake. And you can see it actually came up in a window. Now this is pretty. I mean, I love it, right? So you can see it's fully featured. Now the problem I have with this right now is that's a lot of information to show on the screen, and it's also very small, and it's also it's got the kind of hard to read because it's so transparent. Well, the cool thing about Gwake is we can configure it to do what we want. So let's just do that. Now once I'm in Gwake, all I need to do is right click my mouse anywhere in the window and I can go to preferences. How cool is that? So I didn't really have to go back over here and find the preferences menu. It's all right here. So I want to do a couple things. The first thing I want to do is I want to start Gwake full screen. Absolutely want to do that. Okay, and I want to go ahead and I can go ahead and show the toolbar. Not a big deal. I want it to stay on top. So all this other stuff looks good. Now, underneath the next one, that's good. I want to go ahead and go with that. This all looks good. Don't need to change anything there. Under appearance, I do want to make some changes. The first change I want to make is I don't want it quite so transparent. So I'm just going to move this slider down. And the cool thing is I can go ahead and do this. I don't even need to press OK or anything. I can just close this window. And then when I hit the F12 key to open Gwake, and now I can see if it's as transparent as I want, if it's not as transparent, and you'll see it left me right where I left off. So again, it's very cool, and that's probably about as transparent as I want this puppy, right? So I'm good there. And so I'm going to continue with some of the other preferences. So I'm simply going to right click in this menu and go back to preferences. And I want to continue on in appearance. Let me just make sure that I have everything. I can change the color. I want to change the font because this is really hard for me to see. I'm on a fairly good sized monitor, but man, this thing's running full screen. So I don't want to use the font system that comes with Terminal. I want to specify. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to leave everything like it was, but I'm going to go back up to about a 14 point, and let's just see what that does. So let's go ahead and jump out of here, and we'll go ahead and press F12 key again to reenact Gwake, and now you can see things are much bigger. Now I don't have as much information on the screen, but I can actually see what I'm doing now, which is kind of cool. So my text is now in bold. I like that. And if I do an LS, you can see I still have all of my colors. So if I go to root, you can see I have, again, there's my VMware workstation. I like this. This is so cool. Now, I did tell it I want to go full screen, right? Well, when I come in and reboot the system, and we're going to make this program automatically run on startup, it will go full screen. So again, I want to go back to preferences because There's still a few things I might want to change. Okay, so I've got my appearance down really well, and I really like it. Now, one of the things I'm going to change, let's jump back out of here just real quickly, is in this version of Kali, if I press the F1 key, I'm going to get a help screen. And this is kind of new to me because I'm used to everything being in command line mode, using the man program for a manual. This is kind of cool, but I may or may not use it that much. And what I want to do is I want to program Quake to respond to the F1 key. So if I want to get back into this help menu, which would, kind of beg the question, is it going to go away? All I need to do is go back down here to my applications, and if I go up here and search for help, check this out. And there, there it already is. It is there, and there's my help menu again. So I'm not going to totally destroy this. If I want to get there, I can. But I like just having Quake being used with the F1 key to toggle in and out. I find it's very handy. It's very easy to find on the keyboard. So let's program that. I'm going to press F12 again to bring Quake back up. And we're going to change that key sequence. I'm going to right click and go to preferences again. And I'm going to go up here to the key sequence. And what I'm going to do is, you see it says toggle Quake right here. And you see right now it says F12. I'm going to click right on the F12 and I'm going to press the F1 key. And that's it. Very cool. So that's done. And also there's a compatibility tab you can use. And if you check this, you can see that the compatibility right now is probably going to just be standard bash. That's kind of what I want. But you can change the compatibility options and do some really cool things in here. Here's an escape sequence you can use. I'm going to leave all this like it is. So I kind of think I have this the way I want it. And as I come back out now and I press the F1 key, you can see this is now toggled to come on and off. How cool is that? So you don't have to go over here anymore and get into the terminal and wait for it to open. All you do is press the F1 key and you're in terminal mode, and you're right where you left off. So you can always see what you can kind of see what your history was. Check that out. This is very cool. So I'm going to go ahead and reboot this. Well, one more thing, I guess. I want to make Quake auto start. Okay, so to do that, I'm going to go back over here to this program, and this is my tweak program. This is a new tweak tool that's included in GNOME desktop, and where I want to go is startup applications. This is very cool. So when I go into startup applications, it doesn't have any. I'm going to hit the plus key, and it's going to bring up a window that shows me my applications. Now, I haven't really been able to search through this, but what I can do is just kind of go down through, and you're going to find Quake will actually be here. It's down here in one of the subsets of the tools. So it takes a few minutes to find it. I think the last time I went all the way to the end and then just kind of came back up and Quake was there. So we just simply need to find it. So you can see all the programs you can actually have auto start. This is very cool. So, and they are in alphabetical order. So we should find Quake here pretty soon under the G's, and maybe there's an easier way to do this. I don't know. But there's Quake terminal right there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add this. So I'm going to say add the application. So now when my system starts up, Quake is going to automatically start, and it should start in full screen mode. So let's go ahead now and close this window, and I'm going to actually go ahead and do a reboot. And let's see if Quake automatically comes up. I like this tool. And again, thank you to my couple of students who said, hey, you got to go try this tool, because they're right. I've got to go try the tool. So I'm always open to new stuff. As I learn new stuff, I am so happy just to bring it to you and let you see it as well. You don't have to use it, but I'm certainly going to. And the other thing is, when I do these videos now, because I'm going to use Quake, they're going to be a lot more readable to students. One of the frustrating things I find on the internet, I'll go ahead and log into this as root and Tor. One of the frustrating things I find on the internet when I go watch a bunch of the videos is I can't see it because everything's so small or their screen's so big, and I try to zoom in and it's not very readable. Well, I got to tell you, this is going to make what I do for students very readable, not just to me, but to students. So I'll press the F1 key, and now you can see I'm in full screen terminal mode, and here's Quake. And you can see it's got the right size font. That was just a DIR. You know that Linux will support that. I'll do an LS because DIR is not really Linux, it's Windows. And you can see all my colors are there, and this is very cool. And I can, of course, go back and type in etc, and we'll get a bigger screen. You can see it's just working perfectly. It does exactly what I need it to do. And again, we can always go back and look at history. Um, um, this is just a very cool program, and I love it. And so again, thanks to those students that bring me new stuff. As I get new stuff, I'll try to bring this stuff to you guys. But I hope you guys have fun using this. And then if you press the toggle again, you're back at your desktop. So how cool is that? Toggle on, toggle off, automatic screen mode or terminal mode, full screen, and it's kind of pretty. So you can, again, modify this in a bunch of different ways. So the next thing we're going to want to do when we come back to the next video set is we actually want to do an update and an upgrade to our Kali Linux. So let's go ahead and get started with that in just a moment. As we begin this upgrade process and update process, I want to just take you to the file that contains the repository information. And that's really important because what I found is as I've worked with Linux, if I don't have the correct repository information in Linux, it does not give me all of the stuff I want. So for example, on Kali Linux version 1.1.x, I also use not just the standard repositories, I use one called Bleeding Edge, and that just gives me the latest and greatest. However, this is a new version of Linux, and if I were to use that Bleeding Edge, A, it might corrupt my Linux, and B, it's probably still not going to give me everything I might want. Remember when we did the install, there was a place where it says, do you want to use a network, I forget the verbiage, but it had something to do with a network mirror. And in the past, I've always said no, and what I really should have been doing, to be honest, is say yes, because what that does is make sure you have the most current repositories. Now, my workaround for that, just in being new to Linux, was I would go out to Linux, find out what the repositories were, and make sure the file was updated. So just in the educational process, let me show you where that file is. So if I press my F1 key to get back into Quake, I'm going to go ahead and you can see I'm actually already in the directory. So it's found in etc /apt. Let me just get out of here and go back in from scratch because you guys are probably already here at root. So I'm just going to type in cd space // and then cd etc /apt. Oops. Sorry about that, etc /apt, and that put me in the apt directory. And if I do a list, you'll see I have a file called sources.list. So I'll type in leafpad. I like the GUI version of this way better. Space and then SOUR and hit my tab, and you can see I have the sources list. You say, well, it didn't do anything. Well, it did. Remember where we've got this nice Quake program running over the top, so I'll kill Quake, and you can see here's my two repositories. This one is loaded by default. If I choose not to load those network mirrors, this repository, which is the security repository, does not get loaded, and that would be a mistake. So you always want to make sure you have the correct repositories for whatever version of Kali Linux you're running, really any version of Linux, not just Kali. So I know I have the right ones. I'm going to close that. I'm going to go back into Quake. I'm going to go ahead and just go back to my root directory because I know that's where I'm going to want to be. Okay, and I'll do a list. And I'm going to go ahead now and clear my screen. And I'm going to do the apt get process. So I'm going to type in apt -get, and I'm going to type in update. And now it's going to go out and do the updating process, which I need to do. And once that is finished, then I'm going to go ahead and do the upgrade, which is basically going to implement all of these things. So I'm going to do an apt-get. I'm just going to press my up arrow key, by the way. I'm going to backspace. I'm going to put in update or upgrade, excuse me, one of those upwards. And I'm going to use a -y. And the reason I'm going to use the -y is because there's going to be a lot of questions, and I want the answer to be default yes. And so this will save me from having to keep pressing yes and stopping my installation process. So I want it to just go ahead and go out there and complete. So now it's going to go ahead and do all of the things it needs to do to update this. And this will take a few minutes. So I'm going to go ahead and pause the video while this completes, because this will take about 5 or 10 minutes to get all the stuff I need to get. Now, as you can see, I've went ahead and finished this process. And if you want to know if everything is actually done, what you can do is you can just type in this whole command again, apt tick get upgrade. And it's going to come back and tell you that there's nothing more to upgrade. So that will always let you know you have the latest and greatest. And I recommend doing these two commands together. So again, if I want to just verify, I'll type in apt get update. So it goes out and finds everything it should find to update. Again, this isn't really installing anything. It's just building a record. And then I will also go do the upgrade again with a dash Y or a tick Y. And this will come back and tell me indeed everything is up to speed. So if there's anything new that it has to go out and get, it will always go out and get it. But use this update and upgrade feature together. So that's going to go ahead, and I now know that I'm updated, I'm upgraded. Our next task is going to actually to be able to install SSH so we can remote into this. And the newer version of Kali does some different things. So let me go ahead and clear my screen, and I will be back momentarily. So we need to install SSH, and the reason we need to do that is I want to make sure that we can remote into this using Putty. Now, Kali version 2 works a little bit differently than Kali version 1. Kali version 1, all I needed to do was install SSH, install a certificate, get the servers running, and go. I've actually got to make a file modification in order to get this to work, because what happened with Kali version 2 is they want to make sure that administrators logging in as root would need to do this in a secure manner, and so they don't allow root login basically. And I want to fix that because I like to be able to do that. Now, typically I'm not logging into this as root from a terminal, but there might be some times I might want to do that while I'm doing some other things. So I just want to kind of show you how to do that. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and get back into my terminal, and I'm going to type in service tick tick status tick all. And what this is going to do is bring me up a list of my services. Oops, let's try that again. And it's going to bring me a list of my services. And if you'll notice as they go by, you go back up to look at SSH, and you should see it has a minus by it. That means that service is not running. So even if it were running, obviously you couldn't do anything with it. So let me show you. I want to get the service to work properly, I need to install some certificates. So I'm going to go ahead and do SSH dash keygen. So this is going to generate its own certificates. I'll do a -T or a tick T, and I'm going to type in RSA because that's the type of certificate that I actually want to install. And I'm going to hit enter, and this is okay, where do you want it? I'm just going to type in a file name of, let's just, since we're going to use Putty to log in, I'll type in secure Putty. So we know that that's the security key for Putty. I'm going to hit enter, and I'm going to not worry about a passphrase, just enter a couple more times. And now what it did is went out and generated the key. Now if I go back in and I type in service space SSH start, you'll see that it should now have started my SSH setting. And so if I go back now and I type in the status, you should see that SSH is now running. Now it's not going to allow me to log in yet. So we see SSH now does have a plus by it, but I'm still not going to be able to log in. And the reason I can't log in is because, and I can really show you, I'm going to go ahead and go out of this and I'll show you what happens when I try to log in, and then we'll fix it. So you're going to actually get to see my whole desktop and my copy of Camtasia and everything, but there's just no way to prevent that, right? So I'm going to go here to Putty. Well, first of all, let me verify my IP. And I believe it's 136. So I'll go over here to Putty. And in the old copy of Kali, this would of course allow me to log in. So if I were to type in 10.1.0.136, it's going to come up and give me, well, nothing yet. Let me just try it again. Up there it is. It's going to say, you know, you can't do that. Let me just double check and make sure I'm at 136. Let me make sure that my copy of Putty's like working like it's supposed to. And this was 10.1.0.136. Yeah, it's going to go ahead and tell me about the certificate. I'll say yes. It's actually going to ask for a login, and I'll type in root and Tor, and it's going to keep going back and going, access is denied. That's because we need to change a file. So let me just show you where that's at. I'm going to go ahead and bring up my Linux, and I'll just keep it small for now. If we go into, I'll do an ls, make sure I know where I'm at. And by the way, you can see those two files that created secure putty and secureputty.pub. Those are the security files for that key I just generated. So let me go into cd /, which will put me in the very top of the file hierarchy. And let me do a cd etc. And let me do a cd.ssh. And that's going to put me in the SSH folder. And what I want to do is type in leafpad, L-E-A-F-P-A-D, space. I want to do SSHD and hit my tab key. And that's going to go ahead and complete that for the file name _config. And let me bring this up real quick. And again, I'll need to get out of my terminal window to see this. But here it is. And I want to go all the way down. Oops, let me get that out of the way. It's not going to do me any good there. I want to go all the way down here to this verbiage that says, I've got to, of course, got to go find it, right? There is some verbiage here that I need to be looking for that has to do with the fact of a password needing to be used. So let me see if I can find it real quickly here. Sometimes I can find it, sometimes I can't. There it is right there. You see it says permit basically remote login without password. I'm going to go ahead and just back this without password up, and I'm just going to type in the word yes. Okay, so I've done that. Then I need to kind of restart this whole service. I'm going to go ahead and tell it yes here. I'm going to go back into my terminal, and what I need to do is I need to type in a command that says systmctl, and we're going to restart SSHD. So that's the command we're going to use to actually restart the service and take into consideration those changes we made. Now you could have done something else. You could have just restarted Linux and it would have been fine. Let me now go over to Putty and see if I can get in now. So I'll type in my IP address of 10.1.0.136. It's going to ask me now. Remember, this time, since it already warned me about the certificate, it's not going to warn me again. So I'm going to go ahead, or at least ask for an acknowledgement. It's really not a warning. I'm going to type in root, Tor, and now I'm into my copy of Kali. So I'm able to now remote in, which was kind of what I wanted to be able to do, is be able to remote into Kali. So that's how to install SSH on this new version of Kali, and that's how to get everything working. Now, there's a couple other things I want to do, so I'll be back momentarily full screen with Kali, and we'll go ahead and finish off this installation process. Yes, I want to close that window. Okay, now we're back full screen. I really don't like showing my whole desktop, although there's nothing on it that's going to matter. It's uglier. So when I'm in a product, I kind of like to stay in the product, but I had to do that to show you Putty, so we did that. There's a couple other things I just want to kind of show you. Uh, One of the things that I don't like is if I let this thing set for anything more than about 4 minutes, it's going to go to a lock screen. And quite frankly, when I'm in here doing my penetration testing, I don't want to have to deal with a lock screen. So there has to be a way to turn that off. So let me just show you kind of what that is. There's a really cool program down here. We've kind of looked at it before right here that's going to allow you access to applications. Now it doesn't have very many here, but the cool thing is all you need to do is go up to the top and type in settings, and it finds settings, just that easy. And really, not only does it find settings, it finds the power, because this is where I want to go under settings. And because I've already gone here, just kind of playing around, it's going to show me that. So I'll go ahead and click settings, and what I really do want to go into is power. So I'm going to go to power first, and I'm going to go up here to where it says the screen lock, blank screen. I'm going to go up here and tell it never. I don't want to blank the screen. I don't want to use that feature. Okay, and so I'll do that, and I'll click on the back button, and that should take me right back in here. I also want to go to privacy, and up here I want to tell it to on the screen lock, I want to tell it no, I don't want to do that. Okay, so I said please don't do that. I actually do want to leave notifications on, but I don't want to lock the screen. So now if I were to wait the 5 minutes, it's not going to come back and nag me for a password. It's just going to run like it normally would. And again, I just want to encourage you, you've got some really cool things over here. You've got Metasploit framework, and you've got some other stuff that we'll use when we start penetration testing. But these two guys down here are kind of new, and I really like it. Again, here's the one where you can find whatever applications you want to find just by searching for them. That's really cool. I like it. And you can also, um, again, once you find an application, you can click on the application and it will do whatever you want it to do. And then the other one is this little guy that's a tweak program, and you saw me use that when I wanted to go in to the system and load my little terminal program called Quake automatically. So if you have other things in Kali that you want to run by default automatically, you can put those in here. And there's a lot of other system configuration stuff you can actually do in here, but I've really done all I need to do. So that's going to get our penetration testing platform up and ready to actually do some penetration testing.